Welcome back to another episode of Sun Valley Shop Talk, the podcast about the folks, stories, and happenings around Sun Valley, Idaho, brought to you by MVP Vacation Homes. And today we have a massive episode for you guys, all about the World Cup. This is going to be our World Cup special. The World Cup's going to be held on March 20th through the 27th in Sun Valley. And today we decided to do a little bit different of a setup where we bring on one of our past guests. NBC broadcaster Steve Porino is going to sit down with a couple Sun Valley legends. He's going to sit down with Michelle Griffith, the president of the Sun Valley Council, Harry Griffith, the director of Sun Valley Economic Development, who are both very incorporated in bringing on the Harriman Cup and the Sun Valley FIS Alpine Finals for ski racing here in Sun Valley. And then Steve sits down with two Sun Valley ski legends, Dave Currier and Charlie Williams, to talk about what it was like racing in Sun Valley back in the day and around the world. There's some amazing stories. This is an absolute crash course on the Harriman Cup, on the World Cup Finals, on ski racing. So if you have a lick of interest in what's going on in March in Sun Valley or want to know more about ski racing, this is the perfect episode for you. So grab a cup of coffee, sit down, watch, listen, whatever you're doing, and enjoy the show.
I think the beautiful thing about living in Sun Valley is that in many cases, you don't have to open a history book. You just go find people like you, Charlie McWilliams, and you get the history from the horse's mouth. But I think before we kick off, like how back in the day, how did you end up in Sun Valley?
Drove.
You drove. You didn't come by horseback.
No.
So where were you at the time? You said you were born in New York City.
I was born in New York City, moved from New York City to Twin Falls in 1950, summer of 50, and then started skiing up here the following winter, and the rest is history.
I mean, to me, when I read it in the books, it seemed like the golden era of pioneering and skiing. So can you give me, and we want to obviously talk about the Harriman Cup, but your first exposure to the Harriman Cup and what it meant to skiing in this country and particularly this valley?
Yeah, the Harriman Cup was, a big deal back in those days. I mean, a lot of it was just Americans in the beginning. And then they used to run it every other year. Every other odd year. And then in 1960, after the Olympics in Squaw Valley, they had the Harriman Cup up here, and everybody came from California to here to race in it. And that's when I got to see. And it was very interesting because it was quite a downhill. I think it's still considered one of the top 3 downhills ever in ski racing. Now that might have changed, but anyway, it was incredible. And to watch the skiers from the different countries and the ability levels were amazing. For me, I was 15 years old.
So we're talking like 1960 at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1960. And I'm watching these guys come down, and the good guys just skiing very fast, doing great, looking fantastic. And then you'd get some of the ones from different countries that were in the Olympics, and they'd be snowplowing down in different areas and stuff.
Really?
Exhibition was petrifying.
Was or is?
Well, still is,
Yeah,
probably.
wait.
But, I mean, the great thing was in 1965, they cut it. Before...
Oh, you mean they cut the trail?
Before they had to do for the downhill, people used to go down and they'd shovel it and boot pack it, ski pack it, and everything else down where the course was. The rest of it, if you ever went off the course, you're in trouble.
Right.
So in 65.
And this is 65.
Now
you raced it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not watching anymore. You're not watching anymore.
I'm actually racing in it. But a guy here took a Tucker Snowcat and cut exhibition. It was unbelievable. I mean, he was a character. Anyway, start with a 6-pack of beer and away you go. They go off the top and low, low, under, and come off the bottom and high, high, over, hauling, you know what.
Yeah.
And that course was absolutely incredible. It was just as smooth as can be and very, very fast.
And back then too, was that unusual to have grooming? If we're calling it that?
Yeah, grooming was just coming into being in the 60s.
Yeah.
And the thing is that they were doing the easy runs. In those days, they were not doing exhibition runs.
Yeah.
Yeah, then that was all Tucker Snowcats then. That was...
And those are serious
like
grades,
oh,
right? And I'm going to guess there was no winch cat up there.
No, they didn't have winch cats yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was very, very fast, of course. But it was, compared to what it was in the years previous, it was amazing because,
Well, do you know the speeds? Because I look, back at the origins of it, and then it gives me the distance, and top to bottom, in the 40s, it was 45 miles an hour.
Yeah.
But then I get the sense that kind of the 60s and 70s, there was a big step up.
In 65, the Harriman Cup, the average speed, I think, was like 73 or 74.
The average speed?
Yeah. The average speed.
It will not be that for the World Cup.
Well, it'll be close. Well, what happened, the reason why it was as low as it was is we had a lot of flats.
Are you saying 77 is low as an average speed?
77, yeah.
Okay.
Well, we used to come off the bottom of exhibition between 80 and 85 miles an hour. So, and then when we raced on Warm Spring side, like they averaged 77 or something like that.
Yeah.
Because you got up to speed and you stayed there the whole way down. There was no flat terrain like there was on the front side.
Right.
So average speed was faster.
Did you have, so to kind of paint a picture of the environment, because I think most people, it's control gates, it's, A-net, everything is very buttoned up. And I get the sense that there was just a guy pointing, saying, go this way.
It was a lot different back then. I mean, you see all the nets they have on the race courses now.
Yeah.
They didn't have them then.
What'd you have for protection?
What we had, let's see, the one thing, when you came down the course, you went down ridge straight, then you made 3 turns on the rock garden, and then you went across the cataracts over, heading down towards exhibition.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lift tower there.
Yeah.
You go right by.
Yeah.
You go pretty fast. They put cushions against that, like bed cushions and things like that. That was it. And then it was usually, I think that year that it got warm and rained a little bit, and so that cushion that was nice and soft froze solid. So at least if you hit it, it'd still be in one piece. Because if they didn't put it there, because of the towers where they were angled,
oh right,
it would come out in 3 pieces on the other side.
Yeah.
And there wasn't any control anywhere in those days.
And were there were gates? There were gates?
Oh, there were gates. Definitely gates.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you came over to exhibition, there was 6 turns you took to go down exhibition.
Yeah.
If you missed on the top when you came in, and that happened to be during the nonstop.
What do you call them, the nonstop?
That's before. Well, now they're training runs.
Right. Yeah.
That they have 2 or 3 of them now.
Yeah.
Back then we just had 1, and this was like the day before the race. So heading down the course, and as I come up in the air, exhibition, I have a ski drop off. So I start sliding. And sliding, now there was a tree over on the right-hand side of the course that a couple guys had hit. They had to haul them off in toboggans and things. And I knew about that, so I kept trying to get myself turned around, and I was over everything. I finally, 3/4 of the way down, I got stopped. Cleaning myself off and looking to put my ski back on it. I hear somebody laughing. I look up, it's Warren Miller. I said, Warren, what are you laughing at? He slides down next to me. He says, Charlie, I've been up here all day, all over the course, listening to the coaches, looking at the skiers, trying to figure out what to wax with. I said, yeah, what was it? He says, nylon. Fastest thing I've seen all day. Nobody's gone as fast as you has yet. So, yeah. So that led to another problem the following day during the race.
Yeah. Oh, did
Yeah.
you, so you picked yourself, so you're nonstop involved.
Got stopped
Yeah.
partway.
So you only learned half the course.
I grew up skiing exhibition.
Yeah.
It's my favorite run on the mountain.
Okay.
So I was quite comfortable with it.
Yeah.
The next day, I got down. I found out my ski was bent. I skied on heads. And I talked to the head guys, and he says, he called me later, and he says, there's one of the competitors that's got the same ski that you've got. He's got an extra pair. He'll bring it up for the start tomorrow. I said, great, super. And so next day, I'm up there now. First of all, I'm in the Harriman Cup because I'm a local.
Yeah.
All the Euros are here, U.S. team and stuff.
Can you kind of paint a picture of the names of the people that are in the start that were of note in that day?
Well, Carl Schran's one of Healy was like 8th. I can't remember all of them.
But still some of the biggest names in skiing to this day.
They were, definitely.
Yeah.
But the top, probably the first American, I think, was Billy Marold. He was 8th in the finish. But they were all incredible skiers. I became friends with Healy. I don't know how, why, but we became friends then. He didn't speak English, but Leo Lacroix did. So he was a translator for Healy and I. We were on the talk. We had quite a good time during that week. They've been friends forever, ever since. But
I had some Lacroix skis, but back to the start.
Yeah.
So you've gone up there after having skied out. Now you're without skis, but you're going to be introduced to a brand new pair of skis somewhere.
Well, a pair of heads that I would do already, so I know how they skied. I got up there, I went to the guy that was supposed to bring them up. I said, you got the skis? He says, oh, I forgot them. I said, oh, great, thanks. I'm on a pair of slaloms. I said, I don't think I'm going to reach downhill on a slalom. Somebody said, go to the patrol shack. I think they got someone over there. So I knew everybody up here in those days. So I went over to the patrol shack, and one of the guys that was there had a pair of Kesley downhills, 225s. I said, well, can I borrow them? He said, sure. So we were frantically, all of us in there, working bindings, adjusting, waxing, doing everything. So I was racing very, I don't know if I was last or close to it.
Yeah.
Because I was not one of the team members.
Yeah.
So I go out there and I get the course. Here I go. And I'm going pretty fast. I'm having a good run, I felt. And got to the top of exhibition. I was feeling really good. Heading down, get to the bottom. And at the bottom, and you're going the fastest, you want to take a turn off to the right to go down River Run.
Yeah.
In training, all you do is I do is lean on my skis, and they would just, I'd lean my legs and they'd go. I'm on a pair of skis I've never skied on before. I got down there and I leaned, and they didn't turn. They went straight, to the point where I was in a panic because the crowd's all sitting there, all watching and screaming and yelling.
Right. And there's no partition. It's like a rope.
Oh, there's a fence.
There's a fence. Okay.
Okay. And so I managed to get the skis turned finally. And as I went past the crowd, they were like right here, and there's a fence here. I've got one ski out to the right, this arm like this, and this like that. And if I had turned like this, I'd have knocked out 20 people with my hand. And these are all bumps in there. So by then I managed to make it back into a tuck. By the time I got to River Run, I was going awfully slow, because that's where you had to take all your speed off an exhibition.
Yeah.
So now, afterwards, somebody came up and talked to me that there was a panic because they were filming at the time. I don't know if it was ABC, NBC, ABC, or one of them. And when I got to the top of exhibition, somebody says he's in first place. We got to turn the cameras back on or figure this out. And there was panic. Well, thank God for them. I had my issue at the bottom of exhibition, so I didn't finish first.
So you were leading.
Yeah.
You were leading up until this.
Yeah. That's what I was told.
Right.
I didn't.
I'm going with it.
Yeah.
Did they have? I mean, they must have had intermediate times back then, I suppose.
Oh yeah, of course they do.
Yeah.
Especially if you're filming, because they're
Yeah.
they have to know who's not.
Yeah.
So there's interim times all the way down.
Right.
And as before I was coming into exhibition, I guess somebody said, "This guy's in first place."
And so then it's like, then we'll turn the cameras on. Right? Back in the day.
I guess so, but
Yeah.
by then the panic, because they'd pretty much decided.
Yeah.
Because I was so late in the
Right.
race.
No, I get you.
All the good guys had already gone.
Right. It happened to NBC at the Olympics in 2018. We went off the air and then the winter came down. So I know all about that.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that you talk about, getting down to the finish line and what was life like? I have these very kind of glamorous ideas of what ski racing must have been like in the after hours.
Well, when I got to the bottom, I was very upset because of the problem. And I was mad at myself. I was mad at the skis. So I skied down to the bottom of the hill, left the downhills there. I got on the chair, went to the top of the mountain. Said, I'm just going to go up and get my slaloms and go home. I got up there and I went and put my skis on and realized we'd taken the toe pieces off to put on the downhill skis. So there were no bindings on my slalom skis. So with my number and everything, I had to ride down the lift all the way. And people would look at me, and friends would say, Charlie, what happened? Why aren't you racing? I said, I'm not going to race in that course. It's too fast. I was just a kid with a thing to fall down. It's sort of, I had to do something.
Right.
To smile, so.
But
it was frustrating.
I mean, so to kind of recap how your 24 hours went, you bend a pair of skis, because you only have one pair of skis, right? It's not like people had 20 pair down.
Yeah, I had a slalom, giant slalom, and
period. No training skis. It's one of each.
Yeah, back in those days, you had just one pair. At least I did.
Yeah.
For each event.
Right. You go to the start. Someone's going to lend you a pair. Also very unusual. You say they're the exact same skis because they're head, but in this day and age, it would feel like a very different thing. But then you're moving parts around, tuning the skis, waxing, all after being told that the replacement skis have not arrived.
Those skis for me.
So you remounted skis before the start. This must have been kind of a hectic day.
It was very hectic. Well, thank God I knew it, toward the beginning of the race. And I was racing, there's like, I don't know, 45, 50 people racing.
Yeah.
And I had, a fair amount of time to do it, but still, it was panic.
Yeah.
Over there. At least all the guys in the patrol shack were taking really good care of me, doing all the stuff, and I was helping and checking skis and tuning and doing all the stuff. But it was frustrating.
Yeah.
It was. But I was very happy with myself about how the course went and how I ran it, everything else. But things happen.
I mean, when you can say that you were in front of Carl Schranz and Jean-Claude Keely for at least a period of time, that's...
Yeah. We became good friends, like I said, after that, for years. But it would have been had I done well, it would have been my entrance into the U.S. Ski King.
Yeah.
Then going to Europe and everything else. But it didn't happen, unfortunately, so I had to stay here.
Not a bad place.
But it was, the Harriman Cup to me was the ultimate, all the races. Like I said, as a kid growing up and watching all the people who have come through and done well on it. I was reading the results in the other room earlier, and I remember one of the guys, Phil Puchner, who was like second,
Mm-hmm.
ran the downhill on a pair of head standards If you know what those are, that's like a beginner ski.
Right. Yeah. That was the brown one. I don't forget what color it was, but it was not the race ski. It was just
No,
it meant
the standards.
yeah.
Yeah, the racing ski were the racing skis, but they weren't around in those days. The racing skis came later on when I was racing, and
Sorry, the black one, not brown, black.
yeah, it was black.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's black and white lettering, and he did very well in 2 races on beginner skis. So it's amazing what's happened and transformed everywhere.
Yeah. We were just I mean, he was telling me about his run and like kind of watching the race in 60 and his race run in 65 was awesome. Just like,
Dude, that was, I mean, it had to be one of the hairiest times ever, It's like, I mean, I skied on wooden skis growing up, but it was never like racing Harriman Cup on wooden, long wooden skis.
did people, because he was on a head, right? So you were on a metal ski.
Yeah, right.
So, but were there others that were on just like what?
No, they weren't wood skis, but they were fiberglass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were fiberglass.
So you're right. You were right on the change of that. So I was,
Yeah.
I
I started
10,
skiing.
10, 11 years old when that transition happened. I came off Northland wood skis with screwed in edges onto a pair of head competitions with, with the yellow
Yeah,
etching and Lang boots the next year, 60. So that's 65, 66 was when I transitioned off those.
yeah. I was on wood skis for many years, when I first started up here.
Yeah.
And I can't remember when I went to Lang boots, and I don't remember if I raced the Harriman Cup in Langs.
Because if it weren't Lang, it would have been leather boots, right? Would have been like a Molitor kind of thing.
Yeah, it was
Exactly. Molitor or Riker or one of those that
Yeah.
had, 5 buckles or even 6 buckles back then. But
Yeah, we just had Reichley made a race boot, leather.
Yeah. I mean, that was because it was Reichley Molitor.
Right.
So Molitor was a predecessor to whatever Reichley then came out with,
yeah,
I think.
exactly. Yeah.
But so I want to finish up here, like go back to what is for me very interesting about the World Cup coming here is that, as I was saying, nobody. Let me put it this way: when the FIS was asking the locals here, so when we arrive in Denver, how far is the drive? Like they had no idea where Sun Valley was at all. These are guys that have been all around the world. So you have so many athletes that are coming to Sun Valley that are kind of like, it may as well be the Wild West all over again.
Even Patrick Lang, the son of Serge Lang, founder of the World Cup, figured he would fly into Denver and drive here. It was probably the easiest way to
Yeah.
to Sun Valley, not realizing that's a 12-hour
That's
drive.
not the way to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, people complain that it's hard to get to,
There
but,
are airplanes. There are airplanes.
but it doesn't have to be that hard.
Yeah, exactly.
But that must have been, so when, like, again, you were here at a time where people were coming to Sun Valley. I mean, there was people obviously had been here before, but there must have been a sense of like, wow, we're coming to Sun Valley for the first time. You're a local. And do you have any stories that would tell us how people were reacting to this part of the world, seeing it for the first time and that downhill?
Well, first of all, the mountains, one of the toughest there is, especially in the U.S.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people came here thinking it was going to be a lot easier place to ski, and realized a green in their area and a green here were 2 different things. A green where they came from was probably,
We don't have
I was going to say a black was there. A
Yeah.
black there was a green here. And so a lot of people had a difficult time with that.
You can still see it, what we consider a road, like skiing the upper part of Warm Springs and then taking I-80 to go over to college or something like that. And we consider that a road. And then all of a sudden you come on people who are terrified because they think that's a green run to get over to, more green runs. And it's actually really narrow, much steeper than you think, and harder to control speed on. And I think that's the cleanest indication of just how hard this mountain is to. It's your only, once you get down to that road, you're not going down Warm Springs from there. So you got to make it over somehow on the road to get over to college and some of the other terrain.
Yeah. I mean, you've raced downhill all over the world too.
Right.
And it's not true that you take the nastiest, gnarliest terrain to create a downhill. And so you look at Baldy and it does not say downhill. It's almost
It doesn't?
too hard.
I think
It says
this
too hard.
speaks-
It's almost too hard.
I think it speaks to the legacy of the Harriman Cup, though, that's why Sun Valley companies said, let's bring that back. And I mean, you can do it with modern protection, airbags, A-nets, those kinds of things, that you can make this kind of terrain skiable for a downhill.
Yeah.
With some caveats. You better be damn good.
Yeah. Tell them about the airbags that you guys had.
What airbags?
I think it was a Sealy Posturepedic that was frozen.
I was one step up, frozen hay bales.
Yeah.
Oh, we had, when you came off of Rock Garden and across the cataract there's a tower there. The old towers and they would put a mattress on there.
Might as well just hit the tower.
Well, no, because if you hit the tower, you come out in 3 or 4 different pieces. So if they put that there, it would keep you'd still die, but you'd be in one piece. Well, then the night before the race, it rained a little bit and it froze it. So the next day it was solid block of ice.
But do you have a sense of just the people's reaction, the first timers that came here? I mean, you were skiing on a trail, as you said. You've been down many times. There's a level of familiarity. I don't know if that made it more intimidating or less. But for others coming for the first time, it had to have been an eye-opener.
I don't think so. I think most downhillers, especially the ones that are they've skied all over the world.
Yeah.
They're used to it. I mean, the Hahnenkamm, they have steep,
Yeah, sure.
they have a lot of issues over there in Europe, the Labhorn, all of
Mm-hmm.
them. So I don't think anybody was surprised.
No, I think you speak to it correctly, because the early guys that came over here, whether they were from Norway or Austria, Switzerland, or whatever, all those guys had raced big mountains in Europe under, a pretty harrowing conditions by today's standards. So I think they were prepared for it. I think the constant pitch probably was a little bit of an eye opener, but certainly they were capable of handling it now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't, except during the Olympics. Right after the Olympics, I was talking earlier about after the Olympics in '60 when they had it here. And then they had all the people that went to race in the Olympics came here. So some of the countries that didn't have
It had
skiers,
participants. Yeah.
and they were snowplowing down exhibition,
Yeah.
but other than that, the top of them, it's nothing to them.
I'm actually grateful it's a World Cup finals as opposed to a regular World Cup, in that, we'll only have 25 of the best downhillers, men and women, here.
Yeah.
And, because there's a couple things that play into it. If you're running, say, 30 to 65, the light on the hill gets worse as the day, slips into later hours. And they're either up and comers or they've never quite made it to the top level. And so it's just that much more challenging.
Right. The course setters, as we know, you have to pay attention to
Right.
the latter third of the field.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
take them out. Speaking of which, where did the women race? Did they race the exact same course?
The women?
Yeah.
No. They had a different course.
Altogether.
Yeah, they went down Canyon. They actually came over partway down Canyon. They came over into the bottom of Exhibition and went down that way. Yeah, in those days.
Yeah,
but and I don't remember where they started. I don't think they started at the top. I think they started top of Rock Garden. I can't remember, but I think so. And then they went down Canyon, and then when you get just over the cataract halfway down Canyon, you take a side hill over there. It's all grown in now, but it used to be a place they cut out for them. They can go over and they could finish on Exhibition.
Did the downhill change numerous times in the years from when you started watching it over?
No, it was always the same. I don't think it ever changed from it. Well, it did change when they moved it from Warm Springs side.
Yeah.
But when they started running on the front side of the mountain, no, it stayed the same way every year.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
just got faster and faster because of the skis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was-
Did you hear that? I said the average speed Tell them what the average speed was.
Average speed was around 73 or 74. And and
that was my reaction.
on the Warm Spring side, when they ran the downhill over there, it was like 77, because on that backside there's no flat.
Yeah.
Like on the front, you got Warm River Run, the finish on it.
All I can say is it must be because you didn't know any better.
Yeah.
Well, that's my take on it anyway, because that's terrifying speed on especially on that.
Well, we came off the bottom of exhibition at 80, 85. It wasn't.
Well, there's no way around it, you know.
Yeah. You just do it. Well, you can
The pitch of the hill
You
is
can
going to take
take
you
it-
that test.
snowplow you want. Well,
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess. But it allows you to average.
oh,
So-
you know, I never thought much about it. I enjoyed skiing fast.
You're telling me a story before we got on the air here about how to instruct some of these guys that were slalom skiers trying to transfer over onto downhill, and your advice to them.
One guy, I don't want to mention his name.
You know, how do you know he's probably not listening? Go ahead.
Okay. His name is Rick Chaffee. You know Chaff.
Yeah, really well. Yeah. Yeah, he was coming off the team just as I came on.
Yeah. And he
Pure slalom skier, not in any remote
Well,
fashion.
he actually raced in the Harriman Cup, but he wanted to ski downhill.
Yeah.
And he came to me like after a downhill in Vail or somewhere, and says, "Charlie," he says, "you got to come and help me." I said, "What's that, Jeff?" He says, "I need to learn how to run downhill. Can you help me?" I looked at him and I said, "No, you have a major problem." He said, "What's that?" I says, "You got a brain. You're too smart. You got to be an idiot to go up there and go fast like that."
There's a modern parallel to that, or more modern parallel with, and I'll mention his name too because he won't mind. We're good friends from back then. But Ingemar Stenmark. So back in the day when the combined trophy at the AK, Albert Kandahar, Labahorn, Kitzbühel was a combined between the actual downhill and a 2-run slalom. Ingemar wanted to win that trophy and decided that he would give downhill a try at Kitzbühel on Alans, and had, I think there were 222 Alans or 223s anyway. And I think it was a particularly low snow year, the year he decided to attempt it. And we had some video of him in a terrified toilet tuck. And I wasn't at the finish area, but the story is that came down, took his Alans off, handed to his technician and said, "I won't ever need these again."
Is it not true that he skied fully clothed the downhill?
He had a suit on that was like kind of a modified 2-piece padded GS suit. So
Yeah.
he wasn't going for speed. He thought if he could get down in a reasonable time, he could make it up in the slalom with any of the downhillers.
Yeah. I mean, hats off to a guy that chooses Kitzbühel as his first downhill.
That's
Yeah.
but back
That's a hell of a downhill to start with.
your comment with Chaffee that he had a brain. I thought Ingemar had a brain too, but he was definitely taking some risk that he probably shouldn't have taken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true.
So you said that you became friends with Keeley
Yeah.
and Leah Lacroix.
Yeah.
How did you guys maintain that relationship? I know Keeley, he came back here often.
Well, after I quit racing, after a number of years, I worked for K2 for many years. I ran
I
all
was going to say the K2 connection.
Huh?
Michel Arpin,
Yeah.
all those guys were involved with K2 when Keeley switched over to K2.
Yeah. And so I was dealing with the freestyle and the racing.
I've got a great picture. You might be in it of Arpin, Keeley. Let's see. Craig Gorder is in that picture, former U.S. ski team slalom guy. A bunch of guys up there, and I don't remember if you're in there.
Where was it?
I don't even know where they shot the picture, but it's got all the people from that early 70s era.
Yeah.
To
Well,
me, though, it's like as someone that wasn't. I was 2. It's like when Keeley retired in '68.
Right.
But I say retired, but really transitioned in a way that no athlete would today. And the World Cup is the end of the road. You don't go then and race pro.
Well,
and you were part of that transition. So what was it? What was the era like then?
Well, there was still racing going on. Pro racing was a lot different because they didn't have downhills and things like that. It was basically slaloms.
Yeah, until 77, 78. Then
But I guess my question, it's like, what would entice? There would be nothing to entice someone today at the top of their game, Marco Odermatt, example,
no.
to then, hey, there's another series we want you to compete in that is better. But
Well-
that then was different.
Well, on the pro circuit, you can accept money.
That was the
eh.
major transition over. Well, Carl Schranz became the sacrificial lamb, if you will, in 72.
Yeah.
And so it was money under the table versus being able to take money up front, sponsors outside of industry sponsors, which was the way it had transitioned with the U.S. team when I was on the team early, is that you could accept money. It had to run through the national governing body.
Yeah.
And it could only be from sponsors within the industry. It couldn't be anybody outside, like a Red Bull or something like that now. So, but it was that transition that kind of precipitated that alternative for
For the pro racing. Yeah.
But generally, it was guys that either hadn't made their A team in this respective country, and so this was a good option to make decent money and still race.
Yeah.
A full circuit of 10 or 12
Yeah.
events.
Yeah, because there was a decent purse for the slalom for the pro races. Even though we were still making a little bit of money under the table. I know one friend of mine that got his in a cigar box after a race in Europe.
Huh.
I got mine in the Hotel Cornavin in a small vanilla envelope. My first under the table payments.
I have
It was-
$100 framed in my garage from my first winnings
Oh,
in 1991. And every year it's worth less. But I find that, was there any money ever given for winning the Harriman Cup, either officially or in a cigar box?
Sure there was. Well, not only that, but they used to they put teams together, and then they'd have a betting thing where,
Like a Calcutta kind of thing?
yeah, a Calcutta deal. And so,
I didn't realize that.
yeah, and then so there was big winnings that came out. There's a lot of money in it. But the winnings would go to the people that had the money that put into the whole thing. And I do believe that if your team won, you probably quietly got some money.
Some of the winnings from the
Yes.
Calcutta.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And well,
those-
I will keep asking these questions because I'm so intrigued by, what the vibe would have been like. Did everyone stay together at, the Sun Valley Lodge? Was it just this big kumbaya of people? Because, the way it is now, different teams stay in different places. Occasionally there's one venue in Norway.
No,
where
they-
they all stay together, but for the most part,
No, they stayed in different places when
Yeah.
they were here. Yeah, they stayed in different places, but we'd always wind up, they always had something going every night.
yeah.
And then there was one night in the boiler room. Do you know where the boiler room was? That's downstairs in the lodge, in the actual boiler room, or the bar.
Oh,
I thought it was a name for her bar, the takeoff, on the boiler room, but it was an actual boiler
It
room.
was an actual.
I thought it was in the Sun Valley Lodge when they realized that the hot springs didn't work and they had to heat up the pools.
Yeah, so anyway, it was just, and I remember that's where I was spending. Leo and Jean-Claude and I were in there having a wonderful time
Yeah.
about stuff. I could tell stories, but I can't now.
Well, I mean,
We had
it's a
one-
great place to tell
Yeah.
stories. This is the place to tell
Well, I can
stories.
tell one story.
Okay.
We're all in there, and I look up all of a sudden, and I see somebody crawling through the pipes above. I look out and I'm like, yeah, that's Rip McManus.
Of course it was.
Yeah, that'd be Rip. And so he's up there running around, and everybody's laughing and pointing. And all of a sudden, the cops arrive. And I'm up there looking around. Here's the cops. They're running around like this. No, wow, they'll never find it. They'll never find Rip. And pretty soon, somebody stand next to me. He says, "Charlie, what are those guys doing up there?" I went, "I don't know, Rip." Yeah, Rip and I spent a lot of time together doing stuff over the years. Two Irishmen.
Yeah.
So,
This is the boiler room.
yeah,
The boiler room was in the basement of the lodge that is no longer there.
the basement's still there.
Yeah.
The boiler room closed years ago. That was where the first T-shirt contest in the world was held.
The first, I'm assuming you mean wet T-shirt.
Wet T-shirt.
Okay.
Which
Really?
is a
Is there any
T-shirt
other
contest.
kind?
I don't know. I just wanted clarity.
It was a T-shirt.
It was a T-shirt contest.
Yes.
Gotcha. And then
it became a wet T-shirt contest.
I see.
Yes.
So that was the first one in the world.
That was the first
What year
one.
was that? I know.
That was the winner. That was the winner of 70, 71.
Okay.
And we were making a film called The Performers, a ski film. Dick Barrymore was.
Yeah.
And winner of 70, 71. And we all got there, and they wanted to do something to start the film off. And so we sat down in the lobby trying to come up with something to do, and we came up with a T-shirt contest. So then we came up with, degrees of difficulty, things like that, just like skating.
Yeah.
We put the whole thing together. And just happened to be, at that time, was the stewardesses and flight attendants were all in town for their convention.
Just a coincidence.
So they sort of got involved in the whole thing, and that was the first one. It was a very calm one, though.
Yeah.
It was a very calm one, but that was the first one. And we did them all around the United States while we were making the movie. But that's the other story.
That gained.
That's another time. That's the story for Spider, too.
Did you know that? The origin
I knew
of it?
K2 was the inventor of the T-shirt contest, which, shortly became wet T-shirt T-shirt contest.
Yeah.
Immediately. And I knew you did a tour of them too, because that was when I was first on the ski team, and so I remember being at one in Mammoth where K2 was filming.
Yeah, we didn't do the one down there because the last one we did was in Aspen. And then they started having them different places.
Yeah.
And they got a little
Out of control.
out of control, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, quite so. But, and then that's, Spider was skiing for K2 then too. So we were back, he's doing some stuff, and he was back there racing and in the pro races.
Yeah.
And he became one of the judges there and also in Aspen.
Uh-huh.
So over the years, but that had nothing to do with Harriman Cup. But that's where all of our friendships started. Was the Harriman Cup, the Rhodes Cup, all of those.
I looked down that list and Leo Lacroix, who built skis.
Yeah.
Karl Schranz, who built an Austrian legacy. Tony Seiler, right, who kind of created what Kitzbühel is today, which is arguably, it's not arguably, it's just absolutely the biggest race on the planet. And he ran that race for years. And Jean-Claude Keely.
Yeah.
I think if you ask people today, can you name 3 skiers? And it's going to be, Keely's probably going to lead that list.
No.
To this day.
No. It's absolutely amazing how many people have no idea who he is.
You think?
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Because
I guess I'm comparing it to other skiers, not other people.
No, I'm talking about other skiers. Now, even young ski racers, sometimes you ask, do you know who Jean-Claude Keely was? No.
Yeah, but you ask them if they know who Michaela Schifrin is, they might not know either.
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
They know that. The difference is, I think that, I don't know why, but when I grew up racing, I knew all the old famous ski racers from back in the 40s, the 50s. And the ski racers here, they know, 10 years back.
Yeah.
Maybe 15 years back or so. But beyond that, Keely to them is sometimes.
Yeah. I would.
It's very surprising.
Yeah.
I was very disappointed when I talked to some young kids on the ski team, and you remember when Jean-Claude was, who? Oh no, Jesus.
Have you heard Peekaboo Street story about Jean-Claude?
Because no,
It's wonderful. So her dad was injured and for whatever reason was driving the bus. And it was when Keely was in town. I forget exactly which year it was, but it would have been late enough so that Peekaboo was born.
Yeah.
And he of course, knew who Jean-Claude Killy was. And he's like, I want to tell you about my daughter because one day she's going to be an Olympian. And she gets her medal in Nagano. And Nagano, the gold medal, winning the Super G.
Yeah.
And who's there to present it? Keeley. And he says to her in her ear,
Did he remember that from
your dad told me this day.
Okay, that's really
And she tells that story. And like, I'm emotional telling it, you know, like
That's cool.
that is very cool. That's a coolest story there.
yeah, something else.
So with regard to the racing here, that reminds me of something I literally just heard from her mouth was Tamara McKinney. And the fact that the last World Cup race here was in 77.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you know, we're always talking about legacies. That turns out that was her first World Cup ever.
Did you calculate what her age would have been? Because
No,
I
we have
heard
to do that.
stories about what year was she born? Because now you can only race at age 16.
Right. I think
but she was 14.
14 or 15 at that point. But I mean, she told the story like it was no big deal, like she wasn't making anything up. And it just happened. I mean, she knew that, I think
Pelin, yeah.
Pelin won the slalom. Lisa Marie Morrow, I think, won the.
Yes,
Yes.
I have it here. Keep talking and you'll come up with the
And
results.
then Ingemar won the men's GS. I don't know who won the men's slalom. But,
I think he won both. But one year he won both.
that begs another story. Whether I think that race was originally a Colorado race.
Phil won in 77, the slalom.
Was that?
Phil Mayer won the slalom in 77.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah.
But was it a relocated race from Colorado? It was a really bad snow year.
I don't know that.
That's what I understand. And, you know, snowmaking wasn't as prominent throughout the West at that point. And it was supposedly a relocated race from, and even here, we only had snowmaking, I believe, on Warm Springs and Lower Squirrel at that point.
Yeah.
And the race was actually run down Warm Springs, which I know that for a fact. It wasn't.
Yeah, there was not. Yeah, the
Not-
first snowmaking here was very, very limited. But
Yeah.
once Jans took over,
I mean, I skied with a friend here who was here at that point and knows the history and was around the World Cup also then. And he said, yeah, we used to think it was great skiing on the shoulder of Lower Squirrel, which is all they had, because that was where the snowmaking was and there was no snow anywhere else.
they had some on college.
On college too.
Yeah, they did do college also. It would be tough to hold it downhill on college.
Yeah, or slalom.
Yeah, or
But I think it was Durance's idea that, you know, Warm Springs was going to be the place because it was northern exposure before the days, right? And I think it's important to note that the reason that, you know, one of the reasons we have the World Cup finals and, you know, more and more, the World Cup finals is a non-starter in the Alps because it happens in March and they don't have reliable snow.
Yeah.
And so we do. Scandinavia does kinda. And we're the last bastion of
Maybe like
spring,
pulled out.
reliable spring snow.
And that may not be as reliable with the, you know, just the circulation of the warm currents that come, you know, across the Atlantic up there, that at least the southern areas in Scandinavia may not be as immune to
Yeah.
the warming as well. So yeah, we may be the last bastion of where we can hold late March or April, World Cup final races.
Charlie, let me ask you this, and I don't know if we need to go on, and you probably have a life to continue outside of these four walls, but are we going to be?
He doesn't. I can vouch for that.
What's it mean to you that this race is coming back here, and are you going to go out and watch?
Oh, yes. Of course. I was very angry when they decided not to have any racing here. And Chuck Webb at the time was withholding. And he came to me and he was telling me, so yeah, we're going to have him, quit for a couple of years. And I said, Chuck, no, that won't work. He said, oh, yeah. I says, no, I guarantee you, if you tell them you're not going to have any races for a while, it'll be 25 to 30 years before you get in it. And they went, no, we're Sun Valley. I said, well, you'll find out.
Huh.
So, of course, I'm ecstatic to see it here.
Yeah. Instead of
Well,
30,
I
it's damn
really-
near 50.
What's that?
Instead of 30 years, it's damn near 50.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exciting to go see it and watch it. Definitely.
Yeah.
I even like to race the course, not race. I like to ski the course at some point, which I'm going to try and do here in the next few weeks.
You don't want to, trust me.
Yeah. We got a pair of bent head skis, 225s, be perfect for you.
No, I only use 220s.
220s?
Yeah, 225s are my cash lease.
Okay.
I still have those, I think.
Do you really?
I think so.
We're going to need a picture of those. Well, maybe we want to get, because we just went yesterday up on the course.
Oh, yeah.
So got a feel for it.
Yeah.
And that was when I learned Dave had, so much history of kind of where the Harriman had gone and whatnot. But we got an eyeful of that downhill. Yeah. Give me your impressions of that downhill.
Well, especially the time of year that this downhill is being held, which is, it's a gift, really, just because of light on that hill. One of the reasons it's so fierce is just the natural snow that ends up there, because it's north facing, is always hard, particularly with some added man-made snow. So having light on that run is going to be critical. But in the spring, that's probably my favorite trail to ski, just because of
Which one are you talking about? Because
Warm Springs. Not necessarily coming down International onto Warm Springs, but just even below the road at I-80 to come right down Warm Springs and just ski it nonstop all the way, or even take the road over and go down Greyhawk or Hemingway. And it's always a favorite run in the spring. So, I mean, I've skied that hill thousands of times, and then just get on it yesterday with you and just see the reality, not from outside the fences, but actually on the course, and see what's been done for the dirt work and cutting trees, putting in the stanchions for the A-net and everything, seeing it almost to a point where it's close to race ready, and just realizing the magnitude of what Sun Valley's created. It's literally mind-blowing. And having raced all the big downhills in Europe and here in North America, it's going to be mind-blowing for every guy in the top 20, every gal in the top 25 that's over here racing it when they take their first slip down it, which is I think the plus side of this, that, as Charlie said, it's been so long since we've had World Cup racing here. And so there's literally nobody that's raced a downhill on this terrain, and it's going to be eye-opening.
It's such a cool thing. And that, it's, I could keep coming back to you about people's first reactions, because these days, we go back to the same venue time and again, particularly with downhills, with the odd, downhill in Beijing or the downhill in Korea, which, they're never going to get used again.
Yeah.
No heritage to them to speak of.
Sochi.
Yeah, same deal.
Yeah.
Right? Sochi was amazing, but it's got no heritage. They got no legacy. No one's going to go back there to run that downhill.
Right.
But they're going to come up here for the first time,
Yeah.
and then they're going to experience this for the first time. So having skied on all those downhills around the world, you're going to get this question 1,000 times. How's it stack up? First blush.
First blush, and this isn't to denigrate any other downhill, because my favorite two downhills in the world are Kitzbühel and Laberhorn, for exactly the two different reasons of what those downhills represent. Whereas Kitzbühel is a sheer terror, like the first time you slip down it, not only for the terrain, but for the snow and everything else they do there. That first impression, your stomach is literally in your throat the whole time. And Laberhorn, for different reasons, you've got some terrifying parts like the Hundschopf and the section down into the Legacy Road, underneath the railroad tunnel and everything. And then, you're relatively calm until you hit Honigschuss, and you realize you don't have any legs left for the last 40 seconds.
You've only got 45 seconds left.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And you're forgetting where you're going.
And you're going about 98 miles an hour at that point. So that's a different kind of terror than you have even when you drop over Hausberg for the last 40 seconds of Kitzbühel. So the way I put it in perspective is that Kitzbühel has the first 35 seconds, which is your toughest in the world, no question. And the last 35, 40 seconds as well. In between, it's a long road. It's got
It's moderate.
the Altischneise. It's fast, but it's, on a little side hill. It can be rough in there, and the light isn't great. But, and then over the slalom, it's not like threatening in any way. It's a great big roller, and you can catch some air if you don't time it very well. But then, Larkenschuss and all the way down to Oberhausberg. You actually have a little uphill section there as you come to the top of Hausberg, but then, of course, hell breaks loose
Yeah.
very quickly as you drop over. Ask Svindal, ask RCS, ask any of those guys, and they know what it can produce for falls and catastrophic things. So, but overall, I think, and a little bit of this is kind of favorite son, having lived here for 20 odd years and skiing the hill so many times, is that I would still put it on the same echelon, and perhaps even first in terms of what it represents as a pure challenge of the mountain to ski the terrain of the mountain with very little limitation on what's placed in front of you. And that is the overall gradient forever, never lets up. So the amount of time you spend on a flat ski here is literally going to be close to zero, maybe touching down off a bump or two here and there, but everything else, it's going to be a 65 to 80 mile an hour turn with a lot of terrain changes, a lot of different aspects, and then add in the fact that, it's the first time running it. But I think time will prove this true, that it will become one of the premier downhills, if not the premier downhill in the world. And particularly when you look at what's being done with women's racing nowadays, and I'm glad that Birds of Prey has broken the ice there, and the women have run a real challenging downhill and elevated the level of downhill racing for women. I don't know if it'd be possible to actually start the women and run the same course as the men here, having.
Well, I mean, that's the interesting part. That's why I asked you about, how the Harriman, the history of it, because, and I think, the further back you go, the more they kept men and women at other opposite ends of the gym.
Absolutely, yeah.
And this will be, the women and the men are going to start. It's a matter of convenience, but it's net it's the same result. Women and men going out of the same start. So they actually have made an exception to the FIS rules of maximum vertical, which is I think 800 for women. It's 822.
Yep.
Men and women, same course. And I didn't get any impression from Tommy Johnson coming down that there was going to be an additional control gate at all for the women. So same course.
I think you're absolutely right there. And they have to run the same course mainly because you're really limited by where the A-net placement is. And so you can't add more turns or make the turns wider.
And there's, just simply the function of World Cup finals, you have a very condensed schedule. So It's not, having two different courses or, an extra day to reset and kind of do it. No, it doesn't exist in the schedule.
That's another whole element that it brings into it. And I love the equality of danger and risk that brings along with it. And I know some of the women personally, and they're up for the challenge. And that's going to be really fun to watch them take on this mountain too in the same way.
I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
The transition at the bottom of the where you're going to the dip and up the other side, did they fill in that a little bit?
Yeah. Yes. And,
Yeah,
and the Stahlhang is the Stahlhang as it was named back in the original Harriman is at the bottom of International. Is that correct? Is the intersection of International and Warm Springs?
I think it was more a reflection of the steepness, but in terms of, like Charlie thinks, it's really the actual turn itself, a fall-away turn.
But they're calling the Stahlhang Greyhawk
right
for this one, which is not what you're talking about. You're talking about when it International.
International now.
Yeah. So, okay, I just want to make sure because they're two different places now.
No, but I would compare what we're calling the Stahlhang now here, a more direct comparison to the actual Stahlhang in Kitzbühel.
Yeah.
That's a left-footed turn. Ours is a right-footed. But in a lot of ways, they're so similar because of the way you enter them with the speed that you have. And the way my first coach, Hans-Peter Rohr, who's just fresh off the Swiss team, when we looked at it coming out of the carousel, looking down into Stahlhang, seeing the fence way down there, and he says it's basically like It's like skiing around the backside of a teacup is the way he described it to me.
Oh.
It sounds very gentle.
Yeah, the more you keep going around, the more there is to go around. And you just hope you come out not on the fence, but somewhere just off it. And sometimes it's just a matter of hoping where you come out, because the conditions dictate.
Terrain has the final say.
It has the final say on where you end up. And so you sort of have your fingers crossed at the same time. You make a plan, but it's usually plan B or C that you're ending up with, hoping as you get down onto the road.
But to answer your question, we understand that they added some 25 feet of snow. So that transition is not, that seemed like a lot to me, but having skied, that transition is not as sharp.
No, my impression was exactly the same, having skied that run with just the base snowmaking that we usually have in there. And in my mind, I was thinking, man, if you come off with international with any speed, you're going to hit 5 or 6 G's of force in the bottom of Warm Springs. But the fact is, there is probably 25 feet of snow in there, and it's a lot wider. And you are going to have some
wide it is.
That was my first impression, was like just how much room there is everywhere up there now, and it's beautiful. It's just a thing of beauty, honestly.
And I hear, like, some of these stories I read about the history of the Harriman, and this would predate the days you were racing it, I think, but the width of the trail was 50 feet. Not, but like it averaged 50 feet. It averaged 50 feet.
Oh, the width of the run.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No.
I mean, look at the legacy part of Labahorn, from Downhill Racer and just above the railroad underpass there. That's been grandfathered in over years, and it's one of the most, it's not treacherous, but it's one of the most calculated decisions you have to make as a racer, because of the narrowness of that road, which will never pass homologation now. And it ends up being a crux because of how well you can execute that and plan it out so that you carry your speed all the way down through that next section.
Critical, but not lethal.
Exactly.
Whereas skiing down Exhibition, if it's 50 feet wide, is what. How wide was it when you were racing? I mean, were those trails reasonably wide then?
Oh, well, everything is about the same size, same as it is today.
Yeah.
It's just going into a river run.
Yeah.
It was about as wide as this room.
Yeah.
Maybe a little wider, but still.
Right.
That's where the original lift came up there.
Yeah.
It was just a slot.
Yeah. So not the same as today.
So
did you race the old downhill at Aspen Highlands, which they never ran again after the early 70s?
I've run a downhill there, but I don't know if it was the downhill.
That had a section that eventually prohibited it from being homologated as a modern downhill.
Yeah.
The last time we ran it.
Well, it'd be cool to have you go down the downhill and kind of get your impressions of it, because I imagine it looks like a freeway in width compared to what you ran.
Well, there's also a lot of stuff that keeps you from dying.
Yeah.
All the nets and stuff that we didn't have.
Yeah.
There's a lot of death prevention up there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. And I think without those A-nets, there would be a lot of death. That'd be my guess.
Oh, amazing. It's like that tree I talked about on the exhibition. There wasn't anything there, but those were like 4 or 5 guys hit it. And it was over there, and the turn was over here somewhere. So when they came off and they fell here, they just accelerated into it. So
the law of immovable objects.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, nobody ever thought about putting anything around it or cutting it down.
Right, cutting it down would be a thought. Yeah.
So one thing I'd like to bring up, and it relates directly to kind of the rejuvenation of racing here, is that this impetus from Hans Peter wanting to come here and see his skiers from the early 70s was that it's expanded far beyond that, to the point where, it's probably going to be the largest, if not the largest, reunion of ski team alumni ever.
No, there are going to be guys here?
Yeah. I mean, all the guys from the 70s are coming, and then Tamara joined us, and she's bringing in...
Nobody from the 60s?
Are they still alive? No, there's a few. These are like so long, like Rudd.
He's right here.
Russ and some of the Polsons from that late 80s.
But you know who is coming?
Who is?
Is Perrine Pillin. And she's,
I think that's phenomenal.
and I didn't know when I was told that by Nina Quario. Nina Quario is the mother of the leader of the World Cup right now, Federica Brignone.
Yeah.
And she and Pillin race together. And they're renting a place in Elkhorn. Watch the races. But I didn't know when she told me that. And I went back and I was like, oh, Pillin won in 77.
That would be cool to get her together with camera in the finish area and have a little.
It's gonna be a super cool reunion. I don't think there's gonna be any Stenmark. There's not gonna be a Gustavo Terni, who was the slalom winner in 75.
75.
Yeah. And I don't know, will the mayors show up? You'd know.
We're trying to get them here. Yeah.
Yeah.
It all depends on their schedules and
And the price of rentals.
But I Kristen Cooper's going to be here. Debbie Armstrong's going to be here.
That's so cool. The legends of our sport.
Good
Doesn't always happen.
But I think that legacy of carrying on is really apparent at every big race you see in Europe. When they pan the finish area, you see generations of ski racers that are attending Kitzbühel or Labehorn or whatever. Happened somewhat here with Vail and Aspen a little bit, but this is going to be another whole level.
No, from what you described to me, it's going to be a whole different level. Make sure they all have name tags on, so we'll make sure the cameras on them. Yeah,
and we'll get you a list so you know.
Yeah,
who to look for in the crowd.
Yeah, cool. And I expect to see Charlie in and among them.
He'll be there.
Where?
In with all the
Oh yeah,
the legends.
Hiding around somewhere.
Okay.
Check the bar.
Yeah, check the boiler room. Check the rafters in the boiler room. When I was talking to Charlie Michelle, he reminded me how long it has been since there has been international racing in Sun Valley. Harriman Cup, World Cup. I'll let you parse through how those merged together in the Harriman Cup, predating by a long shot the World Cup. But you're the president of the Sun Valley City Council. What was it that got the city council behind having the World Cup here? Because it's a huge decision. I don't know if people really understand just what you take on when you invite the World Cup finals to town.
I don't think anybody realized.
No.
I think we had just enough, the right mix of enthusiasm and ignorance, to be honest with you. Until we all jumped in, and now we're swans on the surface, mad paddling below. Skiing and ski racing is integral to the city of Sun Valley in the way that Ketchum celebrates their mining history with the Wagon Days parade. Skiing is what Sun Valley is about. And honestly, and I don't mean this in any derogatory way, there are people who come here who land at the airport in Haley, stay at the Limelight in Ketchum, ski on Baldy, go home and tell people they had a great time in Sun Valley. So the city and the brand are very difficult to parse for the world. It was then very important for the city to support whatever the company needed in terms of police, fire, streets, public safety. And then it was important for us as a city to add value to the race in a way that both celebrated the ski racing history in Sun Valley, but also helps to distinguish us from other mountain towns and ski areas. And the obvious choices for that were the Harriman Cup, resurrecting the Harriman Cup, and the ski joring, which the city is also sponsoring.
I love that. So tell me about, we have this beautiful trophy here. A lot of thought, I understand, went into just what would be the Harriman Cup. And of course, the awarding of it. And this, so I cover a lot of World Cup racing. And, the Albert Kandahar, the Labehorn, these are races that also predated the World Cup. And I think oftentimes we kind of gloss over it. It's another World Cup, and we forget the history, the pioneers, the heritage. So maybe describe to me the heritage of what the Harriman is and how it ended up looking like that.
Well, it's obviously named after the pioneer of skiing in our valley, Averell Harriman. And the original cup was a cup, like a big silver bowl. There's this famous picture of somebody with it over their head. When it came to designing the new one, I honestly didn't know what to do. So I Googled who makes the Heisman Trophy. And I found that company and I said, listen, we need a trophy for skiing that's like that.
Really?
Yeah. So this company is MTM Rewards, I think they're called. They're based in Oklahoma. And we worked with them to come up with something that was new and contemporary, but also very much respectful of the history of what got us here.
Yeah.
And sort of echoed the World Cup, right? Because as you said, the Harriman predated the World Cup, and it was a cup. Once the World Cup came on the stage, and it's a globe, right? So it's a different shape. It's not a cup. We wanted something that sort of echoed that,
Yeah.
but wasn't that. And so that's how the shape changed so dramatically. And of course, it was important to celebrate the history. So the bit on the front is the city logo, which is
And in this case, we say the city. This is
The
the
city.
city of Sun Valley.
this is the city of Sun Valley. This is not the Sun Valley Company, which is a distinction that I don't think anybody understands unless they live here. And obviously the railroad and the history that made this area what it was. And so this train going around is a train that we found that's about the vintage of when Harriman started things. So each racer, man and woman, will take it home.
Oh, so they get it's not they get to take it home.
Yeah, in their carry-on.
This seems super handy.
Yeah, no, it's 20 pounds. But they came in these crates, so we'll package it back up and send it where it needs to go.
And so, but it will be the winner of what?
It will be that was a discussion point, actually. The original Harriman Cup was a combined race.
Right.
And I don't need to tell you this, there aren't a lot of racers who are doing that anymore. So it would have been hard to find somebody who ran both a downhill and a
Slalom, right?
slalom. So then it became just a lot of chatter, right?
Yeah.
The mayor, Harry, me, other skiers, friends, right? I would like to say that there was some deep research that landed us with the downhill. But it seems that aside from the personalities, because obviously when there's an American who's very good in one discipline, that's the discipline that gets the focus.
Yeah.
But if you were to take that piece of it away, the downhill is very exciting. And it's what identifies iconic races like the Hahnenkamm.
Yeah.
And so we decided to award this to the winner, the man or the women who won the downhill.
There's an old Bill Johnson quote, which was downhill or slalom, giant slalom. Those are events. Downhill's a cult.
I believe that. I believe it. It's a cult rooted in fear and terror, I think.
I mean, the stories that I just heard from Charlie that the average speed was 77 miles an hour back in 1965, coming down that unabated, right? And they had frozen mattresses on a couple of the lift towers, and that was their version of safety.
And Charlie today still skis with nothing on his head. You know that, right? Charlie doesn't wear a hat. He doesn't wear a helmet. He skis in the coldest weather just with his head. So that's how you can find him.
Okay. I mean, he is grandfathered in. I think he has earned that right. If the Harriman didn't kill him back in 1965, I think he is good. He's good to go. So, and also, the idea when I was talking to your husband, Harry, he said, there was this thought, and maybe you know a little bit more about this, that if the World Cup returns, and I happen to know that the downhill where it starts now, a little bit lower than what has been homologated or certified off the top. So there's this sense that, maybe if, in addition to the World Cup finals, you're nodding your head like, we can't take it. We can't take it anymore.
No, I'm saying I don't know why anybody thought it should be at the top. It's terrifying from where it is.
Right.
That's where I am going home.
Yeah. No, but as a one-off repeat event coming back to Sun Valley, there's this idea that, maybe it'll be the downhill. I don't know. Maybe you have some insights on that.
And nobody tells me anything, Steve. I have no idea. I wish I had insight. And again, and I don't mean this in a bad way. It happened the way it had to happen.
Yeah.
But the city was not involved in the decision to bring the World Cup here. That was 100% the Sun Valley Company. And they did whatever they had to do in order to bring the World Cup here. Interestingly, it was a secret for a while, right? A few of us knew that we were in the running, but we weren't allowed to say anything. And so we were all very hush hush about it. And in 2024, Harry and I went to Kitzbühel to watch the Harriman Cup.
Yeah.
And everyone there knew that Sun Valley was having the finals. I was like, how do these people know? It's supposed to be a secret. I've said nothing in the grocery store. How
Yeah,
does that
right.
happen? Right. But yeah,
That's the cool part of our town too, is that if you say something in the grocery store, that is officially a leak.
100%.
Yeah.
That if the vegetables in the Atkinson's aisle could talk.
Yeah. So now what else can you tell me that the city is doing to get behind this event? Things that the people can look forward to.
Oh, gosh, I have to find the date of it. We're having an open house. We're taking the trophies back to City Hall
Mhm.
at some point, and having an open house for folks to come and take a look at the trophies. We're having some historic posters blown up and pizza, just a chance to get in the mood. We have hats that we have made, two styles of hats that are made, some pins, stickers,
Pins.
pins.
See, that's
Pins are a thing.
I know. I got a hat full of pins, but I'm not. How am I going to get my hands on a pin?
Oh, I know a guy.
Okay.
I can get you a pin.
And these sweaters?
We don't, but we didn't want to spend city money on this, but Harry and I and Lisa Marie and Peter's the mayor of Sun Valley, and his wife is Lisa Marie, also an Olympian in figure skating. We decided that we needed to have some serious jackets made. So we got red course coats and put the logo that we've just copyrighted on the back that says Harriman Cup. And we have our city patch on one side and of the shoulder and the American flag on the others. But there's only 4 of those. You can borrow
All that. There's a score.
Yeah, sorry. But I know where you could get one if you wanted when you have to anyway.
Okay.
We a lot of this is experimental, right? Nobody knows what to expect. No one knows how it's going to be received. We hope that people love it and are enthusiastic, and we hope that our citizens avail themselves. Most of what is going on, there is a free component to. You can just go stand at the base of the race if you want to, if you didn't buy a ticket or you don't want to buy a ticket. Certainly the event that we're going to have at City Hall for citizens is free. The ski joring is free. The bib draw is free. Bib draws are great fun.
Yeah.
I had no idea that it was that exciting, but it's exciting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'm overstating it, but I want to say this is going to be one of the biggest private free parties for our town that we've ever had. And I don't, apart from the 1,200 seats and the VIP section, that's the only thing you have to pay for. Music's free. The parties are free.
It's probably one of the biggest things in Idaho in terms of free access, right?
Mhm.
People could come for 2 weeks. Our kids are coming, we're told. And, they're not buying VIP credentials to anything. They're just here for the enthusiasm and the fun of it all.
Yeah. Because I know you have some insights on this. Actually, before I get into that, do you know when the last time the Harriman Cup was awarded?
I do not. Do you?
I don't.
Goodness, somebody
We have
must
to yell out to your husband who's
Yeah.
over here. But I just don't know if it was given out during the World Cup. So the World Cup, the last World Cup here was 1977. Would the winner of the World Cup in any way, shape, or form be listed on that Harriman Cup?
We can go look. It's in that. So here's a funny story. It is in the lodge.
Yeah.
And I was trying to get the names off of it because for a while we were thinking maybe we would put all the names on it. But then I was panicked because what if we leave someone off and
Yeah.
don't do it correctly? And so I scaled that back. But the day that I decided to do that was the middle of Allen and Company. And I didn't think anything of it, right? I parked my car. I go charging into the lodge, and all of a sudden 2 gigantic people came and said, "Ma'am." And I said, "Yes." And they said, what are you doing? Like, lady, what are you doing? You can't walk in here. And I'm sorry, I forgot, but I really do need at least a picture of that cup. So here's my camera. I'll stay out here. Please go in there and take a picture of that cup because I needed to get it to the designers of the trophy.
Yeah.
And they did. They were very kind. But they did think I was nuts.
Gotcha. But so you have the pictures. So you have some of the names on there.
We
But
do.
We just don't know when the last one was.
We don't know when the last one was. And you also don't know if that one was correct, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't want to ever leave someone off or spell someone's name wrong or anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Because I know your husband is paid very close attention to who's coming and the housing and whatnot. There is a group of people that could not be more excited for this to come to town and that have been waiting now, as we said, like some 50 years for ski racing to come back. And there are others that, the rumor mill spinning, there's going to be 20,000 people inundating our valley. Do you have a sense of, and what does Sun Valley itself think about? There's that sense that people want to keep it private
Yeah.
and that this is going to invite the unwashed masses into our valley,
You can't keep people out no matter what you do,
right?
right? It's a free country. People are going to come here whether you want them to or not. So we should have fun while they're here.
I quite agree.
But I have a letter in my inbox from a citizen who said that he's not really enthusiastic about the idea. His wife disagrees. He was completely upfront and said, my wife disagrees, and said that half of his friends can't wait and are buying tickets and the other half are trying to find vacation rentals somewhere else and leave. And I think that's probably accurate. There are people who are terrified of the masses and the chaos and they don't want anything to do with it. And the other half are thrilled and excited. I hope it's more than half. I hope more than half the people are excited
Yeah.
that it's coming.
Yeah.
But
Do you have a sense of what our town will look like during that week in terms of crowds, ability to get around? You have we're all guessing.
We're all guessing, right? If I had to guess, I would say it's Christmas times 10, 20%, something like that. I don't think it's going to be that unwieldy. The access is what will drive a lot of it, right? People aren't going to be able to park at Warm Springs.
Yeah.
So the company is putting together different areas where people will park, and the city of Sun Valley is underwriting the shuttles that will take people from the overflow parking where the symphony is
Mm-hmm.
to the venue. So I think it'll be controlled chaos.
That's a great way to put it.
I think it'll
I
be
love it.
controlled. And it is controlled, right? People are here for the race. They'll be here for the race, and they're all going to be watching the race. It's not as if we're going to have tens of thousands of people just wandering aimlessly all over the place. There's a focus for everything.
Right.
So if you don't like crowds and you don't want to see the masses, you know where not to go.
Right. Yeah, go to River Run if you want to ski. And Christmas time, right? We've got 50% more terrain open than during Christmas. So at the end of the day, we've got more places to ski if that's your thing.
Yeah. Or Dollar.
Or Dollar.
Sunny Elkhorn.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Is there anything else that we have not discussed in terms of the Harriman Cup itself? When can we watch this get awarded?
It will be awarded after the Globe is awarded for the downhill. So I don't know how the athletes, they're very strong and clever, are going to balance all of these things that they're going to be handed right then and there, and also get their skis out there for their sponsorship. But after the Globe, we'll award these to the woman and man who win the downhill.
Who win the downhill? Okay.
Yeah.
I think that is an amazing award.
Thank you. And you've seen a lot of them.
And none have been presented to me, but I have seen them from a distance. So, yeah.
Yeah. Have you picked it? It's heavy. Harry couldn't resist the urge to put on all of his Dartmouth ski wear and, hold it like he'd won it. And I was like, okay, you have to put it over your head because that's what they do. He's like, no, you can't put this over your head. It weighs 25 pounds.
Right. I love looking at the history of the Harriman, by the way. I feel like in the first 20 years, I'm addressing someone who's not in the room, but I feel like everyone's somehow had a connection to Dartmouth College, including Dick Durrance, the first winner. Fair to say.
The Green Mafia is what I call it,
Yeah.
Steve. And it is a real thing.
Yeah. No.
As a spouse who married in, I can tell you that they bleed green. It's a thing.
Gotcha. I've got 2 in my house. I'm outnumbered.
So you're part of the mafia.
I'm not sure I'm part of the mafia. I feel I've been targeted.
How is the city going to be supportive of this event? Our goal was to obviously keep everyone safe. So public safety, we were all in for supporting. And then what
Keep
else?
everyone safe except for the ski joring.
I think the Sun Valley company is carrying the insurance on that. So
Yeah.
sure.
We didn't actually get into that, but I think that's, so I have this, I'm part of a WhatsApp group of broadcasters.
Okay.
And when I heard about ski joring, I said, guess what? So everyone that's coming to Sun Valley or covering the races from around the world, I said, we're gonna have ski joring boys. And I sent the video of, for them, an absolute novelty, which I think is so, I mean, it's a novelty even for most people in the West,
Right.
even though it is
A Western thing.
our sport.
Yeah.
But for Europeans, it is otherworldly.
Correct.
And so I think they're going to be very excited about it. Can anyone participate? Let's say the downhillers that didn't qualify for the slalom and the GS, like, can they get behind a horse?
You should talk to
and get it
their
done?
sponsors and their coaches. There will be 3 events. There'll be an event for the professionals, and it's all an exhibition format. They will be racing, but it's not part of.
And where, by the way?
We will be renaming Festival Meadow Champions Meadows.
Okay.
So in the morning, we will unveil another statue of a ski hero.
Are we allowed to say the name?
Are we allowed to say the name?
Can I say she's my broadcast partner?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just say that.
Watch Steve, ladies and gentlemen, and see who's sitting next to him.
Okay. All right.
And so we'll be unveiling that ski legends spectacular statue, renaming Festival Meadow Champions Meadow.
Mhm.
Went round and round on that, right? And so finally landed on many champions, one meadow. And then is it apostrophe S or not so? No.
Okay.
So it's Champions Meadow. And then immediately following that, we'll go right into the ski joring along Sun Valley Road there. And that's free for the public. So there'll be 3 categories of racers. There will be the professionals, there will be women, and there will be men. And I believe the city is also giving some prize money for that. It's a lot to trailer horses up here and do all that. So there has.
So it's part of the circuit. It's not like open mic and anyone grabs the.
It was an invitational. The person who runs it here in Bellevue is Josh Glick.
Mhm.
And so he invited specific people who would be able to demonstrate the thrill of the sport.
Yeah.
Of course, those people told other people, and then other people had to be still, it's an invitational.
Yeah.
And only one person is sending out the invites, but the federation here is working all of that out.
Okay.
We as a city thought it was important. It's going to take place in our city, but we pitched the idea to the Sun Valley company as a event that we would be willing to sponsor on the basis that it's one of those additive things. It's one of those things that sets us apart from
I love it.
other ski races.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. There's no ski joring at other ski races.
Like,
Been to a lot of them. Never seen it once.
even the Hahnenkamm,
No. 0 ski joring at the Hunting.
0 ski joring at the Hahnenkamm.
Yeah. This is so cool. I'm looking forward to it. I'm very proud of that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I hope that
Did you say a date? Do you know a date? Am I putting you on a spot?
for
Is it a one day only?
it's the Monday between. So
Okay.
24th.
Between the speed and tech events.
Exactly.
Okay.
When they're resetting the course, we want everybody to leave the course alone and come over to Champions Meadow.
Champions Meadow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And also the unveiling of this bronze statue. No names. We won't don't leak the name at the grocery store.
No, but if you go to Kitzbühel, they probably know.
Well done. Well done.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'm with Harry Griffith right now, who's Harry the historian.
Yes,
Very
that's
strong.
my new hat.
Yeah. And honestly, like, I'm embarrassed to say how little I know about the history of the Harriman Cup, having been involved in ski race announcing for 25 years. But I think it's one of the things that we we don't do well is honor the pioneers and the heritage of a lot of these ski races that have been around for, we're talking about like 100 years. And so it is your job to bring me up to speed. So with that, I'm going to let you kind of get into like really like the origin, the born on date of the Harriman
no,
Cup.
I could do that. So I think the starting point was, Averill Harriman was looking for a link into the future of Sun Valley, having just, put in the first lifts and cut the first trails. And they were very much thinking that, this is a European sport and we really want to sort of bring Europeans here. It was not just about, glitterati from Hollywood and California. So I think the idea was conceived for an international race. And given that there really was no locus for an international race in the United States at that time, Sun Valley stood up and said, we want to be the first to make this happen. So, the first Harriman Cup in 1937 got an amazing array of racers coming from Europe. Obviously, he did the right promotion, probably provided them with great rooms and free train rides or whatever it took to get people here.
I mean, it's an interesting thing. You think about like bringing people in from Europe in the 30s for a ski race. I don't know if you know this part of the history, but like, how did they get here?
They weren't flying into Friedman.
No, right? I mean,
That was not part of it.
it had to be days.
Yeah, it was a long slog.
Yeah.
But you look at the list of people that are, came to that first race in 1937. They had 44 starters, by the way, and only 30 finished. So there were a lot of DNFs. And we saw that. I'll come back to that again later.
Yeah.
But, you had representatives from Switzerland, Norway, Austria, Canada. I think those are the main sort of competitors. A lot, obviously, from the U.S.
Mhm.
And a lot of those U.S. competitors were also locals. But they were also, particularly some of the international ones, they were ski instructors. So when the Harriman started, you were allowed to race in the race as a ski instructor, but you were considered a professional. So you couldn't actually compete to win
Oh,
the
gotcha.
awards as part
Professional
of
in
that.
that you have been paid
You've been paid as a skier.
to ski, not necessarily race, but just
Yes.
in any capacity.
Yeah. So, and that trend again continued throughout the years, is that a lot of the participants in those races that were international from these various countries and were famous names, which we'll come back to,
Yeah.
were ski instructors here. They had kind of come over, invited by Harriman or invited by some of the other growing ski areas at that time in the U.S. to be part of their ski schools and to help bring skiing to the masses in the U.S.
Starting with those early names, certainly people in this valley would recognize the name Dick Durrance. Can you kind of take us through the race itself? Moved around it, like the cup stayed the same, but the venue had sort of an interesting trajectory to finally wind up on Baldy.
Yeah, so the 37 race was actually held on Boulder Peak, so north of town, about 20, 30 minutes. And interestingly, it was much bigger than the hill that we have now that we're skiing on. The second year, they actually moved to Durrance Peak, which again is north of here in the boulders.
Which could not have been called Durrance Peak at that time.
I don't know if it was called Durrance Peak at that time or not, but that's how it was actually written up in the history records. What's really interesting to me is that was by far the longest and the most vertical drop. So just as a reference point, the drop here on the Harriman Cup in the subsequent years and currently is around 900 meters from top to bottom on Warm Springs side. The Durrance Peak version in 1938 was 1,500 meters. So almost twice as much vertical. And the distance was not quite, it was about 2/3 more than the current distance. So these
It's
were
almost
serious.
double what the maximum allowable vertical is now.
Yeah. So these are real events.
I didn't look at the times.
And by the way, they didn't have lifts or helicopters taking the top of these hills. So those guys are climbing, inspecting the course as they go up. So they moved from kind of those locations to Baldy in 1939. That was the first year that they did that. That was the year that Tony Mott from Germany won. And interestingly, Sig Engel, who was running the ski school here, was the fourth place finisher. So we had a local that finished in fourth place.
Had he won that, but he would have been a professional.
Yes, well, he was a professional, so he was ineligible of winning. But in terms of downhill, he was the fourth fastest.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so they were all allowed to race together.
They're allowed to
You
race,
just-
but they just couldn't take the trophies away
Yeah.
and do it that way. And then after that, it pretty much was down here in sort of the Wood River Valley.
Mm-hmm.
So it varied from, as some of our guests had or will tell, it varied from either the Warm Springs side to the River Run side with a variety of different routes down it. And obviously year to year it changed as well. Sometimes conditions were bad. They couldn't start at the top. So they moved that around. But, so what's interesting now about the Harriman is, it's back to, again, I would say the Warm Springs side, which I think is very challenging in the context of, sort of the continuous grade and steepness. And the hope is that we can, keep this a future event, whether it's going to be a downhill or a future Alpine World Cup finals going forward in the future.
And this just occurred to me, but I read some quotes that Durrance had a hand in cutting the trail that became the Harriman Cup on the Warm Springs side. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I mean, do we kind of owe some of the skiing that we have today on the Warm Springs side to the Harriman Cup?
Well, you owe it to the Harriman Cup, but you actually owe it more to what I would say is the Dartmouth crew.
Oh, here we
Because Averill brought out 6 or 7 people from Dartmouth. Durrance kind of announced it, solicited them, brought them out.
Because Durrance was a class of...
I don't know what class he was, but he was engaged with Dartmouth at that point
Yeah.
in time.
Okay.
So they all came out here. And they basically worked their butts off all summer. They thought they were going to be shepherding around Hollywood stars, and they ended up hauling timber on the mountain.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
So that's how kind of the Warm Springs Trail got cut, coming down International and going down into Warm Springs down the gut,
Yeah.
so to speak.
And it was Durrance's idea, hey, this is northern exposure.
Yeah.
This keeps snow longer. This keeps snow, it's melt proof for much longer.
Yeah.
That was him.
Yeah. So anyway, he had the support of Harriman to make that happen. And that's kind of where the race sort of got its founding and its grounding at the end of the day.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And what would you say the characteristics of that made it such a iconic race?
Well, I think one of the facts was that, again, you're looking at comparisons with the international series of races. So, it was really almost the first in the U.S. It structured itself so that they could attract the international competition and get some publicity and access to people that want to watch ski racing. There's other courses in the U.S. I mean, Aspen, Ruthie's is a very challenging run.
Right.
There's other challenging. We got Whistler. But again, given that we were the first ski resort, I think we sort of burned into people's minds this is a place they wanted to come back to and race again and again and again. And over time, again, this result wasn't just a Harriman Cup. Sometimes it was the U.S. National Championships.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it was a World Cup, as we talked
Yeah.
about in the 70s.
And as I understand it too, an Olympic qualifier.
And Olympic qualifiers, and they had all sorts of different terminologies. So when we talk about the Harriman Cup, we're really, it was called the Special Challenge Cup at one point. It was called, there was international teams races. So there's lots of different sort of brands around this, but underlying it all was an award during the course of those races of a Harriman Cup, with 28th being the most recent in 1977. So this coming
So
along would be
that was the
29th.
question we had. So
Yeah.
the Harriman Cup would have last been awarded to the last World Cup winner.
Yes, if indeed, and that's what we need to see if the name is on the trophy or not.
Right.
But yes, that was the last stated version of award, 28th. So this would be the 29th.
And so as you look back through the history, what are the names that come out in the stories that are distinctive to you?
There's so many names. Those of you in the audience that are ski fanatics, like Steve and myself, you'd recognize them, and some of you wouldn't. We have names that were Olympians, world champions, again, from all different sorts of places. Carl Schranz, Tony Seiler, Buddy Warner, Heine Messner on the women's side, Nancy Green, just almost too many to mention. I mean,
Mhm.
everybody that was great. Gretchen Fraser
Yeah.
won at one point in time. So anybody who was anybody in ski racing came here to compete and basically to try to win.
As I was telling you, I went through what I'm holding in my hands for those who are not watching and just listening is the history of winners of the Hahnenkamm. And I went back and forth between the Harriman Cup winners and the Hahnenkamm winners.
Right.
And there was an incredible amount of overlap, including Andrew Meade Lawrence,
Right.
who won. And, there's Chuck Ferry's never won the Harriman
Never
Cup,
won.
but his
Chuck-
wife did.
Yeah, his wife Barbara won.
Yeah.
Chuck was fourth in the downhill in '63. And Chuck's a local,
Yeah.
so he's part of our local culture. But there's
Yeah.
a lot of other locals as well that maybe didn't get into the European circuit, but that participated here. And some of them are still alive. People like Dick Dorworth, raced. William Jans, in his early youth, was a Harriman Cup competitor. Billy Shaw, was a forerunner. Lots of the ski instructors competed, as I say. Everybody from Siggy Engel to. So a lot of people, have
He
local links.
He won it over and over and over, and also won Kitzbühel, I think 6 times.
Yeah. So there's a lot of overlap with in particular the Austrians. If you look at it from, say, a Nations Cup standpoint, I actually went back and used my AI to figure out, for the downhill only, because this is, again, a downhill only event. So I wanted to contrast it with that. If we look at the downhill only winners in the men's side, the U.S. has had 8 winners of the downhill as part of the Harriman Cup.
Yeah.
Austria has also had 8, so we're neck and neck
Right.
going into this year's event, followed by Germany at 3, Switzerland at 2, France at 1, and Canada at 1. So again, a smorgasbord of international winners, but it very much reflects the fact that we want to. This is one of the reasons we want to bring it back, is to recreate that international set of links for the communities and the economy, and celebrate our ski history.
Yeah. It's such a cool history. One of the winners on there is Sally Neidlinger. Do you know the name?
I've heard the name and I know the son.
Oh, you know the son. So Bill Hudson, a former teammate of mine. And it says here in the history that she won in 1953. He's going to send us a photo because he's got the trophy.
Right.
But he contends that it was actually 1952. And I think this story resonates with a lot of what was happening back in that day, which was that people came, if you were a skier worth your salt, that you were trying to make the national team or trying to make the Olympics, you would come to Sun Valley to train. So his mother, he's from what was then called Squaw Valley. That's where she grew up. But she came here, even though actually she started in New Hampshire. That's where the family started, because their father, Pudge, they called him, was the dean of the college. I'm forgetting. Well, he was Neidlinger. And then they moved out to Tahoe. And she lived here, though, to try to make the Olympic team in 52. And she was a waitress at the Sun Valley Lodge and ended up making the team, but broke her back in 53. So he said, I don't think she won in 53. I think she won in 52. So anyway, that's the story of Sally Neidlinger winning the Harriman Cup. But so many of the skiers, I want to say Gretchen Fraser, same story. Didn't she come? She was not from here, but I think she stayed here for quite a long time and did a lot of training before.
Yeah, people accept her as a local.
Yeah.
She's on all of our lists of famous people that we like to celebrate at the end of the day. So that's very, very much the case.
Yeah. You got a favorite story of some of these famous folks?
So in sort of going through the history a little bit, and I don't proclaim to be, to know everything about the Cup. I'm still learning.
Mm-hmm.
But what's really interesting is some of the footnotes that appear in the finish results. So they give you the basics about where was the course, how many competitors, what was the winning time. But they have these little footnotes in there that I think are quite interesting. So if I look back on some of the fun footnotes, in the 47 Harriman Cup, there were 7 DNFs due to broken skis. So again, this was the days when, you were on wooden skis and anyway, you're going fast and that's not the best recipe necessarily to stand up by the finish line. In the 1950s Harriman Cup, they noted that the crowd was 1,500 people, which is probably pretty respectable because they're not watching on TV.
Right.
And in those days, people they climbed the course because they wanted to be up close and in person.
Yeah.
So we had 1,500 skiers climbing the course. That's like a slow day at Baldy.
Yeah.
But still, that's a lot of spectators. In a number of the events, they had comments like sheer ice. And you generally see a smaller number of finishers on those
Right.
days.
Yeah.
That's part of the story.
I mean, you showed me the clip, and maybe direct people to that clip of some of that footage.
I think we're going to cut some of that into our
Okay.
thing.
Well, we've just stay right here then for that
Yeah.
coverage.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's to me the idea of skiing with, this melt freeze. Obviously, they didn't water it like they do today, but maybe you didn't need to.
Yeah.
On the equipment that they were on is harrowing. And you don't have to be going 77 miles an hour like Charlie was telling us they were doing in the 60s, because I went and looked up and I kind of figured some of these average speeds back in the 30s and 40s was more like 45 miles an hour. But then the leather boot that goes barely over your ankle and the 2x4 that's basically lashed to your foot had to have been so harrowing.
Yeah.
I mean, just they're virtually no safety measures whatsoever.
Well, times came down and speeds went up.
Yeah.
If you go back to the first Harriman Cups, on Durance Peak, the second year, the winning time was 4 minutes and 51 seconds. But over time, the speeds of, the times have come down so that, by the mid-50s, the times coming down Mount Baldy were kind of 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 40 seconds. And then in the 68, which is the last kind of true Harriman Cup downhill, really then sort of the format changed to slaloms and GSs and combines, that winning time was 2 minutes and 2 seconds.
1968, 2 minutes, 2 seconds, but off the top.
Off the top.
Off the very top.
Yeah, off the top.
And
so I'm curious what the best time's going to be for our event coming up.
Yeah.
We should take a pool and winner takes all.
Yes. And so, but keep in mind, and I guess you have to do, if we use that as a reference, it came right down Warm Springs.
Yeah.
Okay. What? So it did international or just came right down Warm
It
Springs?
came down international. That was the first.
Yeah.
upper
And after
cut.
that,
And then it was
right down the
You
gut.
got to Warm Springs all the way down.
Yeah.
But again, if you read the sort of Dick Dorance's stories from the early,
Do you have that passage that you were reading to us before?
it's somewhere I could plug that in. But basically, it talks about how once he sort of ran the style along with no turns, bouncing off of the corn snow and sinking in a foot, so he couldn't turn. He had to go straight. He then sort of had to dodge through some saplings and hang. I mean, there's a great book called Durance, The Man in the Medal, which tells the story of the Durance family and Dick Durance's becoming really the emblem of the U.S. Ski Hall of Fame medal that they award every year.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole page that just is riveting reading if you're a ski racing fan.
Yeah. And it does underscore how different it was. And again, it's that pioneering nature that I think sometimes gets lost in this era of professionalism where these athletes are so dialed in to do this very specific thing. And, they have 20 people in their entourage to handle all the different elements that Dick Durance was doing himself. And he was building the course.
Building the course, climbing the course.
Yeah. He was getting the word out to make sure that he was the promoter.
But in those days, it was really important that you knew the course intimately because,
Yeah.
I mean, again, you could take secret shortcuts or,
Right.
you would know where the sun is at what time of the day and react accordingly.
Yeah. And to me, it mirrors much more of what big mountain skiing is like, choosing your line and kind of, so this.
There wasn't, there was a start and a finish in the early days, and that was it.
Right.
So you made your own pathway down, one way or the other. One thing I don't want to forget is back to some little snippets that we got from the records that we went through. I thought the most interesting one was they had a DNF because there was an avalanche. So I'm assuming that this guy was going down the course, and some snow sloughed off and swept him off the course, and he couldn't finish. So he didn't break his ski, but he got DNF by avalanche.
DNF by avalanche. And do your records show whether the race then continued?
Yeah, they actually had all of the people finished after that. So
Yeah, that doesn't happen anymore.
yeah,
So I think, back to your question is, we have this lottery as to, or this bet as to how long it will be. We have to keep in mind that the downhill doesn't start quite at the top, but that only speaks to the vertical drop they'll cover, whereas the modern iteration of this downhill, because of a lot of the trail work that was done, will cover an equal amount, if not more distance.
yeah, you're back and forth, you're left and right.
Yeah,
It does meander.
yeah,
So yes, I mean, if the previous course was kind of straight down, was 3,100 meters in length, this course would be, what would you guess?
well, I mean, they have a homologation, which says
Right.
2,300 meters now, which
Right.
is, I think it's going to be much more, not much more, but it will be 2,600
Okay.
meters.
Yeah.
And my guess is that it's not going to take them 90 seconds.
Yeah. The Hahnenkamm, what's the best time in the Hahnenkamm? 150 something?
151 and change, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So this will be a real harrowing 150 some or whatever seconds of challenge for all these racers.
Yeah. There is, unlike the Hahnenkamm, there is zero rest, zero idle time.
Yeah.
So it's 90 seconds. It's bull riders do it for 8 seconds. It's going to be 90 seconds of just nonstop trying to stay
Yeah.
on the back of this.
Physically very demanding, a lot of G forces in some of these turns.
Yeah.
And edge to edge. So there is, as you say, no rest. So there's going to be a lot of lactate acid
Yeah.
coming into the finish line.
Right. And it's the final race of the year. So springtime is always a challenge for everybody. It's a long season. But I just think that everyone's going to be so stoked when they get here, because Europeans love the American West. Yeah, I think you know this, right? There's a certain allure. I think even Americans, right, still have this sort of nostalgic feel about it. And I don't think there's any ski resort that represents that more than Sun Valley, which is why when your wife was telling me about ski touring, I could have been more excited about that.
So are you picking up any vibrations from the European crowd about what they're expecting when they come here?
Well, again, I've been doing so much remotely that I haven't had a chance. I know that my broadcast partners, those that will be able to make the trip, because so many of us do it remotely now, you're going to see the Swiss here. Interestingly, I'm pretty sure one of the Swiss broadcasters will be Tina Weirater, whose mother is Hanni Wenzel,
Yeah.
who won the Harriman Cup.
Right.
And so I think that's going to be pretty cool. But they're looking forward to it. It's, I send them pictures of the cougars in my yard and the elk and whatnot. And, that's just a different planet for them.
Yeah.
And they're really excited to kind of get a feel for it. But as I've said so many times, the FIS, we're asking, which direction do we go when we get off the plane in Denver? That's, people really don't know. It's been voted the #1 resort in the country. I don't know how many times.
Yeah.
And people in Europe don't know where it is.
Well, our hope is to make it a regular stop on the circuit. I mean, I think when I say our hope, I think as a community, Sun Valley Company, this is, one of the reasons why we're going back to this.
Yeah.
It may not be an Alpine World Cup Finals. It could be a standalone downhill for men or for women. But, the hope is that, this 29th Harriman Cup becomes the 30th, the 31st. Maybe not every year, but certainly in conjunction with other events in the U.S., that they like to bundle so that people aren't traveling back and forth across the Atlantic
Yeah.
all the time.
And this is my contention, not that anyone asked my opinion. In the way the Harriman Cup became kind of a model downhill in its day, this downhill here is a modern downhill in the way that I think when Beaver Creek is now a classic. People in Europe love Beaver Creek. But if you tried to run that downhill in the 70s and 80s, it would have been too much. The equipment didn't work. It didn't. And with where the sport has gone, this downhill fits the direction and the future of World Cup speed, because it is so technical. It's so challenging. And I think that's where the future of downhill is. So I think this is going to go down. This downhill will be a downhill that represents the future of downhill
Well, and
skiing.
the investment as well that the company has made in the hill in literally under a year. So, you've got, all of the ANET, again, state of the art, well designed. You've got, the whole timing system. I mean, there's more fiber that they've laid in the last 6 months than, ever before on the area, along with the tree removal, the dirt work. So yes, it has been designed in kind of a modern skier era. And, that's to me, the exciting thing is we've gone from, the narrow 50-foot wide avalanche gully
Yeah,
to
right.
something that, is now befitting a world-class sports
Yeah.
venue.
And I think it's important to point out, because I was up there during the survey as you were, a lot of the tree removal were trees that were ill as well. A lot of the
Forest health is a very important issue
Yeah.
for the company and for the whole area because it improves forest health, obviously, but also reduces fire risk,
Yeah.
which is huge for our
I
area.
mean, a lot of these trees needed to come out.
Yeah.
And then a lot of them were in areas that were, they were deadfall. Like when you look at that traverse, that's at the bottom of Greyhawk. You go down there, and if you've skied here your whole life, I imagine you're going to look at that if you haven't been over there and go, wow, this is a whole different area over here. But a lot of that clearing was done with deadfall, and it looks unbelievable how wide open some of that space is,
Yeah,
which was necessary.
And a big shout out to the Forest Service. They did a great job in sort of expediting all of this work. And again, I think they've ended up with a really good balance of great recreational venue, great racing venue, and a much sort of healthier forest element for our entire community.
Yeah.
I think, now's the time we say, let's write the next chapter
Mm-hmm.
of the Harriman Cup. Let's go forward and look at ways to continue to make this, one of the premier races in the U.S. and high on everybody's list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do you have a sense of the impact it's making so far? You've got your ear to the ground. You're part of the economic development of this valley,
Right.
as much as anyone.
Yeah.
I go to a lot of World Cup races, and it's hard for me to tell what the impact of World Cup racing is on any of these particular resorts. For example, when I go to Squaw Valley, now Palisades, Tahoe, they've got so many people there. I'm not sure they need more people coming, but then there's the element of just simply branding.
Right. I mean, I think for our community economically, clearly it's very important. I've talked about, the impact on the economy of north of $15 million for the kind of the event. I think that, that raises a lot of boats in our community, whether it's the lodging community or the restaurateurs or other services and goods providers. I think that everything that I've seen is that pretty much everybody gets it and embraces this as something that's good and it's well due in terms of its time to bring it back. There are, certain pockets of people that don't really want to sort of see a lot of people here. But
Mm-hmm.
again, as we said before, it's going to be Christmas plus a little bit for, at most kind of a 5 to 10 day stretch. So, again, we can live with that as a community if that helps the local businesses. And so I think that broadly we're happy with what's going on.
You've got a finger on this too. Where are the populations coming in from? Because people ask me, and I say, I don't know that, at least in the United States, that people do a ton of traveling to go watch a ski race.
Right. So I think what we've seen in the bookings, I've been involved very closely in the housing side of things, is that a lot of the attendees are going to be second homeowners that already have a home here. So they're coming back. They might not normally come back in March. They might be here for Christmas in the summer, but now they have a reason to come back. They're also bringing a lot of friends and family with them. So I think that we'll see not just, kind of mom and dad in the home, but they'll bring kids or friends.
My house, by the way, is packed.
Yeah.
For that
Okay.
exact, it will never have been at this capacity in
Right,
its 8
right.
years we've owned it.
So you'll have a lot of locals. You'll have obviously those second homeowners, friends and family, and then you'll have the traditional, crazy ski aficionados that are going to want to come from other ski areas or that had kids in the program and want to come and see this race here in the U.S.
Yeah.
There will be a mix of people coming and staying and drive traffic. We do expect some drive traffic, but we don't actually know until kind of the day rocks up.
Yeah.
What's going to happen.
Yeah.
But again, our projections are somewhere in the order of 4,000 to 6,000 people in town
Okay.
during that period, and that includes people that are working on the race and the racers and the coaches and the athletes and all of the contractors, of which there's very many. I mean, this is a very complicated event to put on.
Yeah.
So I want to give a big shout out to all of our contractors out there that have teams of 2, 3, or 30 people that are coming in and spending literally weeks here in advance. I want to call out and thank the volunteers that have signed up to go up and work on the course. Have you signed up for your on-hill slipping duty yet?
Are you calling me out? I should do that because when I came down the trail with Dave Currier just yesterday,
Yes.
I saw all the dads who do, who I volunteer with to coach this, that, and the other, and they were putting in B-net, and I was,
Yeah.
I was looking like the NBC kind of prima donna in the middle of the course skiing where they had just slipped,
Right. Well, you can time what you do so you can avoid the B-net if you want.
But I'm going to put my name on that
But the
list.
volunteers are great.
Amazing.
And we need them. We need 300, 400, or 500 volunteers to put this on. And there's still slots available if people want to sign up. So
Slots in what departments?
go in on hill in particular.
Yeah.
The off hill's been sort of, I'll use the word, sold out.
Yeah.
Volunteer closeout
Mhm.
for months now. But the on hill activities, they still need bodies to help with stuff, putting up banners, making last minute adjustments, and fencing, slipping the course. So make sure you have some good edges.
In Beaver Creek, the Talon crew, one of the best in the world, and I think we're going to get some of them here helping.
They're here already.
Yeah.
They've been here for more than a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's right. That's the true thing. You're talking about at the end of the day, you're going to need hundreds of people managing this course, but they have at the top of the race course, they have a technician with a machine that tunes the edges, because how many times have we seen on the air,
Yeah.
a course worker breaks loose, just if they'd only
All the way.
tune their screws all the way to the bottom. So they've seen enough of that. So they put a tuner right at the top of the race course. So
Yeah. No, that's great. Again, it takes a whole community to make these races happen.
I couldn't be more stoked about it. I'll volunteer.
Cool.
You have my promise. Good.
Your next adventure starts here. Visit our website to learn more. And be sure to join our community on Instagram. We'd love to have you.